The popularity of Souls games is at an all-time high, not only in the Indian gaming scene but overall. आपके बहुत सारे दोस्त जिन्होंने भी Souls games खेले हैं probably call Souls games one of their favorite games of all time. और मैं खुद भी उस ग्रुप का पार्ट हूँ. Elden Ring is my favorite game of all time. And the only game that has come close enough to take the spot is Dawn 2 the game. Shut up, this joke is never going to get old. It's Dark Souls 3. एंड आई नो एज अ आउटसाइडर आपको लगता होगा कि भाई ऐसा हो क्या रहा है ये गेम्स में कि जो भी खेलता है उसे एक लाइफ चेंजिंग एक्सपीरियंस कहता है. द रीज़न आपने ये सारे गेम्स नहीं खेले हैं इज़ प्रॉबेबली बिकॉज यू हैव हर्ड अ लॉट ऑफ हॉरर स्टोरीज रिगार्डिंग द डिफिकल्टी ऑफ दिस गेम. Stories of people taking 6 hours, 500 attempts to just beat one single boss. You have seen the memes which make you feel like this game really hates its players. ये सब आप देख के बोलते होगे कि मैं क्यों अपनी लाइफ खराब करूं इतने डिफिकल्ट गेम्स खेल के. सो द बिगेस्ट रीजन व्हाई यू डोंट ट्राई दिस गेम्स इज बिकॉज ऑफ दिस थिंग राइट हियर. सो इस वीडियो में मैं इन गेम्स की डिफ़िकल्टी के बारे में बात करूंगा एंड व्हाई यू शुड प्ले दिस गेम एंड सेकेंडली हाउ यू शुड गो अबाउट प्लेइंग दीज गेम्स एंड होपफुली बाय द एंड ऑफ द वीडियो आई हैव कन्विंस्ड यू टू ट्राई वन ऑफ द Souls games because trust me when I say this, playing these games is a life changing experience. और इसीलिए मैंने इस वीडियो का नाम दिया है I want to start off this video by talking about how I got my start in these Souls games because it is a pretty funny and relatable story to the people who have tried Souls games before. The first Souls game that I tried playing was Sekiro Shadows Die Twice back in 2021. मेरे ये गेम खेलने के कुछ ही दिन पहले आई हैड जस्ट completed माई फर्स्ट प्ले थ्रू ऑफ Witcher 3 एंड राइडिंग द हाई ऑफ एक्सपीरियंसिंग दैट गेम I was seeking or looking for a new game to experience that will deliver to the same level of Witcher 3. और तब मेरा दोस्त मुझे recommend करता है Sekiro खेल के देखना, the art and the storytelling and the combat is amazing. And I was like, sure, मेरा गेम अभी अभी ख़त्म हुआ है and I am seeking something new. Why not? Let's give this game a shout. So I installed the game and start playing it and instantly first moment से I am captivated by the opening cinematic of the game. एंड मैंने तो वो कट सीन के एंड होने पे ही बोल दिया था दैट दिस गेम इज गोइंग टू बी द बेस्ट गेम दैट आई हैव एवर प्लेड इन माई लाइफ. एंड देन द गेम स्टार्ट्स. आई कंप्लीट द इनिशियल स्टेल्थ सेगमेंट एंड देन आई गेट माई स्वॉर्ड एंड उसके बाद आई ओपन द डोर. And little did I know, in the moment that I opened the door, I was in for one of the worst gaming experiences that I have ever had. And instantly दरवाज़ा खोलने के बाद bang, you're hit with a tutorial with a lot of words and the rad Aryan was like मैं इतने शब्द नहीं पढ़ने वाला, moving on. And that was mistake number 1. Because I died so many times to the guards in front of the door is actually insane. और फिर किसी तरह से मैं मर वर के छुप के I got to the front door and then instantly mini boss music starts playing. Trust me when I tell you this that I died 30 to 40 times to this guy. I managed to spend 60 minutes in the game just dying. That's all I did. And after dying a couple of more times to this guy, I vividly remember saying, fuck this game, मुझे ये गेम नहीं खेलना, ये बहुत मुश्किल है. मैंने ये चीज़ इसीलिए बताई because there are probably a lot of you who have tried playing these games and have the same experience as me. मैं इतने बार मर रहा था उस गेम में एंड द एंटायर टाइम फॉर 60 मिनट्स आई जस्ट केप्ट फीलिंग ओवरवेल्म्ड बाय एवरीथिंग दैट्स हैपनिंग अराउंड मी. एंड सिंस आई न्यू दैट दीज गेम्स आर नटोरियस फॉर देयर डिफिकल्टीज, मैंने तो एक्सेप्ट कर लिया था कि ये गेम्स इतने ही मुश्किल होते हैं एंड दे आर नॉट मेंट फॉर मी. आई क्विट Sekiro in late 2021 and cut to early 2024, I platinumed or 100%ed Sekiro. So what happened in between? Spoiler alert, Elden Ring happened. I will talk about it later on, don't worry. सबसे पहली चीज़ जिसके बारे में मुझे बात करनी है is difficulty. Are these games difficult? Yes, 100%. But difficulty is not the only feature of these games. जिन्होंने भी ये games खेले हैं know that these games have a lot more to offer than just difficulty. People think that Souls games are difficult like this fucking game. और ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है. There is a phrase that is often used in the gaming community. It's like the Dark Souls of X, where X is equal to literally anything. Going to the other station is like the Dark Souls of traveling in Mumbai local. Meanwhile, all that people are trying to say with this statement is that that particular game is difficult. और इसी स्टेटमेंट की वजह से लोग सोचते हैं दैट डार्क सोल्स इज द मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट गेम ऑफ ऑल टाइम, एंड जिन्होंने भी डार्क सोल्स खेला है नो दैट दिस इज नॉट ट्रू एट ऑल. डिफिकल्टी इज वन ऑफ द मेनी फीचर्स दैट दिस गेम हैज टू ऑफर. Just like दादर स्टेशन पे भीड़ होना is like one of the many features of दादर स्टेशन. What are the other features of दादर स्टेशन? The intricate level design, dude. क्या भाई, ये कौन सा प्लेटफॉर्म है? ये वेस्टर्न लाइन का प्लेटफॉर्म है कि सेंट्रल लाइन का प्लेटफॉर्म है? यहाँ पे 10 से ज़्यादा प्लेटफॉर्म क्यों है? मेरी ट्रेन कौन से प्लेटफॉर्म पे आ रही है? A total of 3 people are going to find that joke funny. There are many features which makes this game worth playing, लेकिन मैं सबका opinion तो बता नहीं सकता, so I'm going to tell you guys why I like playing these games. The best feature of these games has to be the world building, the art, the environmental storytelling and the intricate level design of these games. अब सिंस ये सारे गेम्स कम अंडर द टैग ऑफ डार्क फैंटेसी, तो आपको लगता होगा कि ये सारे गेम्स मस्ट बी फिल्ड विद डेथ, रैट्स, डंजन्स एंड स्वॉम्प्स, एंड यूर 100% राइट, है वो सब, बट इट ऑल्सो हैज़ विजुअल्स लाइक दीज. The world of these games is so heavily inspired by Berserk, which is so fucking cool. Elden Ring में you can literally use the gut sword and it's such a satisfying weapon. अगर आपको Berserk बहुत पसंद है, then you literally have no reason to not play this game. The environmental storytelling जो ये games achieve कर पाते हैं, oof, insanely good. Probably one of the best that I have ever seen. Truly God bless the From Software की आर्ट डिपार्टमेंट टीम because they are insanely good. और अब रही बात लेवल डिज़ाइन की, इसका सबसे बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल है डार्क सोल्स 1. डार्क सोल्स 1 को रिलीज हुए 14 साल हो गए हैं एंड इट स्टिल हैज़ वन ऑफ द बेस्ट लेवल डिज़ाइंस दैट आई हैव एवर सीन इन अ वीडियो गेम. जब आप डार्क सोल्स 1 खेलोगे ना, एक्सप्लोरिंग द फर्स्ट हाफ ऑफ द गेम विल बी वन ऑफ द ग्रेटेस्ट वीडियो गेम एक्सपीरियंसेस यू विल एवर हैव. The entire map of the game is built vertically और आपको ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं लगेगा. It's like a one giant building with different levels at different floors and all the floors are interconnected in ways you would not expect. I know अब कोई तो sadistic आदमी बोल रहा होगा, अरे आर्यन सेकेंड हाफ ऑफ द गेम के बारे में तो बता. ठीक है भाई, द सेकेंड हाफ ऑफ द गेम इज इनकम्प्लीट एंड हैज़ वन ऑफ द वर्स्ट बॉसेस दैट FromSoft हैज़ एवर डन. लेकिन आपको ये बात जानने की ज़रूरत थोड़ी है. आफ्टर ऑल कोई भी अपने फर्स्ट डेट पे रेड फ्लैग्स थोड़ी रिवील करता है. इट्स ओनली व्हेन योर पार्टनर हैज़ फॉलन फॉर यू एंड दैट्स व्हेन यू शो योर रेड फ्लैग्स. वो आर्यन सोल्स गेम का गाइड है कि टॉक्सिक डेटिंग गाइड है? एंड इफ द इम्प्रेसिव लेवल एंड वर्ल्ड डिज़ाइन ऑफ दीज गेम्स wasn't enough, From Software managed to make the exploration of these world so much fun. Exploring a level in Souls game has the sense of true exploration. In games mein there has never really been like a proper map. So 9 times out of 10 you don't really know where you are going. Your curiosity and intention to explore is rewarded with good loot. Most of the times at least. Your intent to explore the vast world of a From Software game can often lead you to something beautiful, something scary, and sometimes entirely new areas, which you can entirely miss, and the devs of these games are really comfortable with the players missing out on their content. मैं कह रहा हूँ ना that the devs and this man पागल हैं ये लोग. Another thing जो मुझे बहुत पसंद है इन गेम्स के बारे में are the bosses. ये सारे गेम्स अपने bosses के लिए जाने जाते हैं. Yes, the bosses of these games are difficult but fair most of the times. The variety of bosses that these games have to offer is genuinely crazy. A snake, a dragon, a monkey, a giant on a horse, giant with a femboy. Something is wrong with this giant. And mera personal favorite, tall women with dexterity builds that will literally annihilate you. Fun fact, did you guys know that Souls game के bosses actually draw inspiration from Indian parents? Let me explain. जैसे mom और dad right before slapping you they kinda juke you out and then slap you. क्या HCF LCM नहीं आता? And then they hit you. That's a delayed attack right there. और Elden Ring के bosses ने ये देख के बोला कि भाई कॉपी कर, क्या insane tactic है. What the fuck was that delay? And now while fighting these bosses, you will go through something which every Souls player does, and I want you to know you're perfectly normal. During the boss fight, I hate this game, I hate this boss, I have died 500 times. Defeats the boss. The greatest fucking game of all time. Yeah, the bosses in these games are pretty damn cool. लेकिन मेरा second favorite feature of these games पता है क्या है? The music of these games. Especially Dark Souls 3 का. I am a huge fan of Yuka Kitamura's composition in all of the Souls games, लेकिन especially in Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro. And yes, मुझे पता है she quit from software back in 2023, but you can still see some of her work in Elden Ring Shadow of the Earth Tree. जैसे जब आप कोई अपना फेवरेट टीवी शो देखते हो एंड यू लिसन टू द थीम ऑफ द टीवी शो बिकॉज इट्स दैट गुड, मेरे साथ भी वही सेम केस है बट विद डार्क सोल्स 3. I just sit there in the main menu of Dark Souls 3 and I bask in the glory of its main theme. मुझे पता है फ्रॉम सॉफ्टवेयर में और भी बहुत सारे टैलेंटेड कंपोजर हैं, बट मैन एम आई अ सकर फॉर यूका किटामुरा's वर्क. लाइक माई फेवरेट पीस ऑफ हर कॉम्पोजिशन हैज़ टू बी द डीमन ऑफ हेट्रेड का सेकेंड फेज ट्रांजिशन. इट्स ब्यूटिफुल. And to all the fellow Souls game fans watching this video, here are some of my favorite OSTs from all the From Software games. I know, it's quite a lot. Pause करके देख लो. और जब इस गेम का म्यूजिक एंड बॉसेस दे कम टुगेदर, दे डिलीवर दोज एब्सोल्यूट सिनेमा मोमेंट्स.
Is this the blood? The blood of the dark soul.
अब आप सबको तो पता ही होगा दैट आई एम अ सकर फॉर अ गुड नैरेटिव एंड स्टोरी ड्रिवन गेम. सो इस एस्पेक्ट में ये सारे गेम्स कैसे हैं? प्रीटी डैम गुड आइड से. Well, it's not a narrative per se, but the lore of these games. It's so in depth and rich that it captivates a player and you'll keep thinking about the lore of this game for quite some time. इस गेम की स्टोरी का पता लगाना is entirely in the player's hand. You piece together the story of the game by reading the item descriptions of the loot that you pick up. अब आप बोलोगे क्या? No way Aryan, I am not going to sit there and read item descriptions of every single item that I pick up. I'd really rather play the fucking game. And I want you to know, most of the player base don't read it either. मैं आपको confidently बता सकता हूँ that 90% of the people who play these games have no idea what the fuck is going on. We all rely on the great work of one man, Vati Vidya. The guy has been talking about the lore of From Software games for more than 10 years. Talk about a man being committed to his craft. It's only after you watch his videos you will probably say, man, the story of these games are amazing. I mean, आप खुद भी थोड़ी बहुत स्टोरी समझ सकते हो by talking to the NPCs that are in these games. But that requires a god gamer sense and a master's in English literature.
I prithee wrest the flame from its mantle.
हैं? और अगर आप मेरे जैसे डम हो, just rely on the great work of this man. So let's summarize why you should play Souls games, according to me. Number 1, the world building and the environmental storytelling. Number 2, the art of the game, whether that is in the armors or weapons or talismans or designs of an entire fucking level. Number 3, stunning dark open world with serene, vibrant, gothic and intimate atmosphere. Number 4, the intricate level design. Number 5, the bosses and the feeling of defeating something that seemed impossible. Number 6, the music. Number 7, the absolute cinema moments. Number 8, the legend himself. And you know what? Number 9, the memes, because they are so funny. So ye raha the final look at the PPT slide. Screenshot it, screen record it, I don't really care. Now the question is, which Souls game should you start with? The obvious answer and the right answer is Elden Ring. I know, Sekiro बहुत ही cool and tempting है. Sekiro is like the hot guy or girl in your batch with a lot of red flags. You need an upgraded skill set to handle them. Trust me, Elden Ring is the right place to start. You don't really need to play Sekiro. Don't interfere in between the love story of Ashina and Genichiro. Stay in your fucking lane. Elden Ring is the most successful product From Software has ever released, selling well over 20 million copies of the game. And this is the game with which even I started my Souls game journey with, properly to say the least. Elden Ring is the most beginner-friendly Souls game. It's the perfect entry point for a newcomer. Elden Ring is the integration of all the Souls games. Added? Multiplied? I don't really know. मैं मैथ्स में अच्छा था नहीं. मैथ्स में अच्छा होता था तो ये सब थोड़ी कर रहा होता था. Since Elden Ring का main focus है exploration and empowering your character, whereas पुराने Souls game का focus was pretty linear. Hey, here is a level with some loot. Level up a bit and fight this boss till you get good enough to beat the boss. Whereas Elden Ring का formula is, ये ले insanely powerful boss who will kick your ass. अब जाओ open world explore करो, look for items, level up, fight other mini bosses, come back to kick the boss's ass. Elden Ring exploration पे इतना heavily rely करता है that you can level up to level 25 or 30 without even fighting the main first story boss. I know Sekiro बहुत ही sexy and tempting है, but please trust me, just resist the temptation. Start with Elden Ring, you will thank me. Alright then we're starting with Elden Ring, right? Right? चलो फिर, let's start with the game mechanics of Souls games, Sekiro not included. The first thing that I'm going to attack is your wallet. I highly advise that you play these games on a controller. Trust me, it's worth it. मैं ये नहीं कह रहा आप कोई PlayStation या Xbox का controller लो, which is so fucking expensive. कोई सा भी Chinese controller ले लो 600-700 रुपए वाला जो 1-2 साल चलेगा. I know कुछ लोग ये games MNK पे खेल लेते हैं, लेकिन हम ऐसे लोगों को पागल कहते हैं. You can definitely play these games on MNK, but I want you to know that these games aren't built to be played on mouse and keyboard. And when these games are already difficult, don't make them even more harder by playing it on MNK. Now that is out of the way, let's talk about one of the most important game mechanic that I need to talk about. Rolling. Rolling is how you dodge enemy attacks in these games because of a feature called iframes or invincibility frames, which means for a brief of a second, nothing can hit you. If you time your roll right, you can literally dodge everything. Swords, fireballs, spells, lasers, lightning, waterfall, oh, never mind. Another important game mechanic is committing to an animation. What that means is अगर आपने एक बार attack button दबा दिया, you will have to finish the entire animation and then you can make the next move. And a lot of times मैंने देखा है, ये मेरे साथ भी सच था जब मैं खेलना चालू कर रहा था games, that in a moment of panic या जल्दबाजी में you action queue yourself. Like you see a window to attack the boss and you spam R1 2-3 times. That means आपका character एक बार attack animation complete करके he is going to do it again. और आपका दुनिया भर का circle spam करना and चिल्लाना कि भाई मैंने तो dodge button दबाया था, dodge क्यों नहीं कर रहा है ये? He wasn't dodging because you were action queued. So अगर आप ये गेम्स को ऐसे खेलोगे जैसे आप मेटल गियर राइजिंग या डेविल मे क्राई खेलते थे, you will have your ass handed to you. The key to winning boss fights in these games is patience. Understand the boss's moveset, look for a window to attack the boss and then roll away or into the attack. Yes, you can roll into the attacks. Iframes, remember? Also, there is a stamina bar, this green color thing at the top. Every action consumes stamina, attacking, rolling, jumping, and when the green bar runs out, your character can't react at all, and you will have to wait for it to regenerate a bit. Stamina regenerates in Elden Ring fairly quickly. Dark Souls is the one where you're really going to struggle with it. Alright, अब थोड़ा in-depth बात करते हैं. In your 150 to 200 hour playthrough of this game, there are several builds you can go for. And I will tell you guys about the 4 basic builds. Number 1, the strength build. I like to call strength builds the Giga Chad builds. This is the build for the players who like to do massive damage every time they swing their weapon. The only downside is that it comes at the cost of time. Yeah, you'll do massive damage, but the sword swing will be pretty damn slow, so you really have to look for your attack window. But I have to say, strength builds are the most satisfying builds in these games. Dexterity builds. Dex build, man. I fucking love Dex builds. It's my personal favorite build. Dex builds are for those who like to be fast and do quick damage. Katanas, scythes, martial arts, daggers. Actually, daggers rehne do. If you love Dex builds, me and you, we're both on the same team. Number 3, Faith builds. Faith builds are for those who want to experience melee combat along with using incantations. Incantations like Fireball, Lightning Bolts, Dragon Spells, and a lot of other cool incantations. Number 4, Intelligence build. This one is for all the Gandalf and Shakalaka Boom Boom fans out there. अगर आपको wizard stuff, sorcery and magic बहुत पसंद है, this build is for you. Also, आप ये builds use कर सकते हो if you want the easiest way to play these games. Bloodborne and Sekiro not included. The game is essentially on easy mode if you use this build. The Souls community don't like players who use magic because it makes the game much more easier. But I am here to tell you, don't give a fuck what the Souls community think. Actually, don't give a fuck what the internet thinks in general. You do you, queen. अब आप ये चारों बिल्ड को कंबाइन करके भी एक्सपेरिमेंट कर सकते हो. It's all up to you. You can also switch your entire build mid playthrough if you want. Like if you find a cool weapon and you want to use it, you can switch your entire build to use that weapon. It is pretty easy to switch your builds in Elden Ring, so don't be afraid to commit to something new and then later change on. You can experiment with all the builds if you want. Now the way you commit to a build is by leveling up, and leveling up in these games looks like... Don't worry, मैं explain करता हूँ. Do not panic. Ignore this right part. Ignore it like how you ignored P block in your 12th standard. Focus on organic chemistry. You level up in these games by collecting souls or runes, which you get by killing enemies. Pro tip, prioritize upgrading your level if you have a lot of souls on you, because if you die, you will need to go back to the spot you died to pick them up again. और अगर आप आपके run back पे फिर मर गए, then all your souls and runes are gone forever. And now that that's out of the way, let's look at organic chemistry. Vigor is your HP bar, the red one. Mind is your magic bar, the blue one, which is used for spells, incantations and special attacks with your melee weapons. Endurance is stamina, the green bar. And then there's the obvious 4 of strength, dexterity, faith and intelligence. And then there's arcane. ये थोड़ा complicated है. अगर मैं ये explain करने लगूंगा तो आप बस confuse हो जाओगे. और so as you play the game you'll understand arcane yourself. I know और भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं जिसके बारे में मुझे बात करनी चाहिए, but if I sit here and cover everything in detail, this video will be much longer than it already is. The video is long, isn't it? So what I'm going to do instead is that there is a great video by Vati Vidya which covers the basics of Elden Ring, and it's the perfect video for a newcomer to watch. It covers all the basic mechanics that a player needs to know before they start their Elden Ring playthrough. So make sure that you watch that video before you start your Elden Ring playthrough. I'll put a link to it in the description as well. और अब मेरी तरफ से, मेरे personal end से, few tips that I'd like to give you before you start your Elden Ring playthrough. Number 1, when you start the game, go in here. It's the tutorial area, and at the end of the tutorial area, it has one of the hardest bosses FromSoft has ever made. Number 2, जब आप ऊपर आओगे, talk to this guy. He will give you a reality check.
You are maidenless.
And do not fight this guy at any cost. You will die. Go around him and get this Site of Grace. Number 3, take the paths that I am taking and get to the Site of Grace. इधर आपको अपना खुद का रोच मिलेगा. And then you can go crazy, explore the open world as much as you want. Number 4, remember, अगर आप कोई बॉस से लड़ रहे हो and you're really struggling to defeat him, it's better अपना दिमाग मत खराब करो उस बॉस पे. Explore the world, level up, and when you're feeling comfortable and powerful enough, come back and fight him. Number 5, use summons to help you in boss fights. Literally, there are so many of them. In mid game you will get this guy, Mimic Tear, and मैं मजाक नहीं कर रहा जब मैं ये कहता हूँ, this man will literally carry you all the way to end of the game. It's like अगर आप silver हो तो Mimic Tear fucking radiant है dude. Number 6, the camera in these games suck, especially when fighting dragons or big enemies. Sometimes the cameraman is the hardest boss in these games. Number 7, don't be afraid to look at guides online. It's totally fine because sometimes finding a tiny item for an upgrade in this massive open world can be hard. And that's my final tip, not only for Elden Ring but life in general. अब आप में से कुछ लोग कह रहे होंगे, Aryan, what about the other Souls games? Remember this mathematical explanation I gave you? So conversely, d by dx of Elden Ring is equal to Dark Souls 3. Again, I know जो मैं कह रहा हूँ mathematically does not make any sense at all. लेकिन you need to remember what I said earlier. I am a dumbass. मैं तो recommend करूँगा really master Elden Ring first, because one playthrough of these games is never enough. You will at least play these games 2 or 3 times. And if you want, you can make the game more difficult and challenging just by choosing to not use summons. And that's when Elden Ring becomes the hardest Souls game. Elden Ring के बाद you can go for Dark Souls 3 because both of these games feel a bit similar. They have the same pacing to it. And plus जब आप पहली बार Dark Souls 3 खेलोगे you won't feel overwhelmed. और यही same चीज़ मैं अगर आप Elden Ring से Dark Souls 1 खेलने जाते हो नहीं कह सकता, because Elden Ring and Dark Souls 1 ज़मीन आसमान का फ़र्क है. After Dark Souls 3 then you can go for either Sekiro or Dark Souls 1. And I mean सबका खुद का opinion होता है. I'm just saying what I did and what I feel is the right way to approach these games. इसलिए जब मैंने वीडियो के स्टार्ट में Sekiro का टाइमलाइन दिखाया था, what actually happened was, in late 2021, I quit Sekiro saying it's too hard. And then in 2022, Elden Ring came out and people were going crazy after the game. And I was like, I should check this game out. And I instantly fell in love with this game. And I just kept playing this game for so many hours. It's actually insane. I loved Elden Ring so much that I beat the base game 6 times. That is before the DLC was released. And because of Elden Ring, I started falling in love with Souls games. And then in mid 2023, I decided to check out Dark Souls 3. And then I enjoyed it a lot as well. The Ringed City DLC is amazing. I played through Dark Souls 3 twice. And then I made the great decision of, you know what? Let's try Sekiro again, you know. Let's give this game another shot. And then I tried Sekiro, I played it and I beat it twice. और फिर लेट 2023 में, आई थिंक दिसंबर में, आई स्टार्टेड प्लेइंग डार्क सोल्स 1. और अब मैं यहाँ पे एडमिट करता हूँ, मैंने पूरा गेम ख़त्म नहीं किया. आई ओनली प्लेड द फर्स्ट हाफ बिकॉज आई वॉज मेड अवेयर ऑफ दैट द सेकेंड हाफ इज़ वेरी इनकम्प्लीट एंड आई डेंट वॉन्ट टू रूइन माई एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ डार्क सोल्स. सो आई वॉज लाइक ओके, सिर्फ O&S तक खेलेंगे, उसके आगे खेलने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. And then I returned to Sekiro again in February 2024 and I platinumed it in March 25th, 2024. For 2 years, I just kept playing Souls games because it was something so new to me and I got hooked to it so much and I loved these games like so fucking much that I couldn't get enough of them. I know अब आप में से कुछ लोग कह रहे होंगे, आर्यन, Bloodborne, Demon Souls और Dark Souls 2 किधर है? First of all, let me start by saying Bloodborne कैसे खेलूँगा मैं? Bloodborne is on a PlayStation 4 and I don't have one. And same goes for like Demon Souls remake. It's on a PlayStation 5. I do not have a console, so I can't really play it. और रही बात Dark Souls 2 की, and you know what Dark Souls 2 is? I have found a great analogy for it. Dark Souls 2 is like an Imtiaz Ali movie. For the people who love it, they really fucking love it. And those who do not love it, they really fucking hate it. मैं खुद एडमिट करता हूँ, while playing Dark Souls 2 मुझे उतना मज़ा आ नहीं रहा था. I wasn't really as engaged as I was with Dark Souls 3 और Elden Ring. And at that पूरे time जब मैं Dark Souls 2 खेल रहा था, in the back of my mind I was going like, I should really rather play Red Dead Redemption 2. So I quit Dark Souls 2 to experience Peak again. Okay, and I think that's about it. अब और बचा ही क्या है डिस्कस करने के लिए. Alright, fine, we'll talk about Sekiro. I won't talk about Sekiro in depth. I want to save that as another video. But if you're looking to start with Sekiro, and again, you know, I'm fine with it. I don't recommend it, but if you really want to play Sekiro as your first game, just know that it doesn't function like a traditional Souls game. You should treat it much more like a rhythm game than a Souls game. Don't get it mistaken. It has those classical Souls element of challenging bosses, and I have to agree, the bosses of Sekiro they are genuinely one of the best ones that I have ever seen. And the music, again, Yuka Kitamura's work, it's so good. Sekiro is so good. Like I feel like people still, after playing Elden Ring, they still say that Sekiro is their favorite game, and rightfully so, you know. And I'm pretty sure the next game that FromSoft is working on, not this Elden Ring Night Rain scam, but the proper other game, is going to be something Sekiro-esque or Sekiro related. Remember जब मैंने बोला था that rolling is the most integral part of these games? Yeah, just replace rolling with deflecting or parrying the enemy attacks. So rather than avoiding the enemy attacks, you face them head on. And that's what makes this game so engaging. And that's why it's the fan favorite game, because of its combat system. For me, Sekiro's combat is right up there with Devil May Cry 5 ka combat. Hopefully that satisfies all the Sekiro fans out there. If not, I plan on making a video on Sekiro anyways, so look forward to that maybe. Hopefully by now I have convinced some of you to try these games. And रही बात Elden Ring की start करने की, I am not really insisting on it. आप चाहो तो you can start with Sekiro, you can start with Dark Souls 1, you can start with Dark Souls 3. I don't really mind, but I recommended Elden Ring because Elden Ring is the most beginner friendly Souls game. And trust me, you can talk to any Souls veteran, they'll all tell you that Elden Ring is the perfect entry point. But trust me when I say this, please try these games. Definitely give this game a chance, even if you think that difficulty is not really your thing, and that's totally fine. Before Elden Ring, I used to look at video games as, you know, a source of entertainment and nothing more. But after playing Elden Ring and then playing other Souls games, I really started to look at video games as a piece of art. I started treating it to the same level of movies and music and then paintings and all that, and it's part of the reason why I like talking about video games is because of Souls games. Souls games is the reason why I feel like I grew my love for video games. So trust me when I say this, people are 100% right when they say that Souls games offer a life-changing experience. And to all the Souls game experts out there, I'd love to hear your story about how you got started with Souls games and what other advice would you like to give to newcomers that I potentially missed out on. I'd love to read your stories. So comment down below and let me know. And I think I'm done. There's nothing more left to talk about, and I promise you I will read the comments this time.